Mr. Ike, welcome to the Smooth Growth Show. It's my pleasure to have you today. And how you been up to? How is it going for you?
I'm pretty good, Mohammed. Thanks for having me on the show. It's a pleasure to be here. Like everybody else, just making the shifts that are necessary as we all face our new normal with the coronavirus and everything that entails.
Yeah,
Having a lot of fun doing that.
yeah. What's your opinion on this corona crisis, if I can put it this way? And how do you think this will impact our lives in the future?
Well, one of the things about being in business is that you will have no shortages of opportunities to like the boxers in the ring would do, bob and weave, right? Just kind of reset and
Mm-hmm.
be comfortable going with the flow. So whether it's the coronavirus or whether it's anything else that might come down the landscape, I think as business owners, one of the things that we are armed and charged with is one, a responsibility to be a problem solver, because otherwise we're not in business. So we have to be out here solving problems that our target markets are dealing with. But parallel to that is just being able to be a good problem converter. So as problems appear in your life and in your business, being able to convert them into incredible opportunities where you can not only see what I would call the blessing and the gift in the problem, but also the opportunity it presents for you to grow, for you to evolve, for you to change, for you to reset. So I think as a country, as a nation, a lot of us are anxious about when it's going to be, when we're going to get back to what we would consider to be normal times.
Mm-hmm.
I think the reality of that is I don't think we're ever going to get back to normal times. We're going to get back to what we would have to classify as a new normal.
New
And that's
normal.
going to, yeah, that's going to incorporate changes in, very fundamental things like just social etiquette, how we embrace and greet one another. I think a lot of people are going to kind of rethink uh, some of their attitudes around that. I'm a father of three kids, and by virtue of having kids and a lovely wife who's very, very cognizant of germs, I'm slowly becoming a germaphobe. And so I often kid myself. I
Yeah.
often kid myself of the number of times I've seen guys go into to the restroom and handle their business and not wash their hands.
Yeah, yeah.
I think a lot of those people are going to revisit their attitudes about that going forward. So whether it's simple life changes like that or even more significant ones in terms of how we do business and you know, being forced to be virtual, I think isn't necessarily going to be just a short-term thing that people take upon as a way in which they do business. But I think over the long term, a lot of people are going to revisit the way in which they service their clients and try to be more efficient about that process and put themselves in a position where if something like this were to happen again, it's not going to result in a significant disruption in the way in which they're able to deliver their goods and services to
Mm-hmm.
the people.
Yeah. I totally agree. And it's gonna be a little bit challenging to get adapted to that new normal. But just like you, I do believe in perception and opportunities. So I think it will be good in the long run to have this new normal as well. And I was looking at when before I contacted you, and then I looked at your profile. I actually thought that you were like a mindset coach. That's what I thought at first. And then I saw CPA and then certified mentor coach. I was like, oh, okay, it's not mindset, it's mentor coach. So how did you become a CPA and how did you become a mentor coach?
Yeah, so I mean, the three streams of rivers that I swim in are that of a business growth strategist slash
Mm-hmm.
business coach, but also as a success and a mindset coach. And all
Okay.
three realms are the things that I bring to the table in terms of how I serve
So I
my
wasn't
clients.
too wrong.
No, you aren't that far off at all.
Okay. Got it.
So my beginnings go back to just, graduating from college a few decades ago. uh, stepping into the accounting world with a degree in accounting and working in the big six accounting firms and learning a lot about audit and tax, realizing that I like tax and getting into tax and realizing that I like the personal financial planning aspects of what we did in tax and
Mm,
specializing in that, getting additional degrees. I got a master's degree in personal financial planning. I've held multiple licenses in my career as a CPA, as a certified financial planner, as an insurance professional, as an investment advisor. Today, I only hold licenses as a CPA and current licenses as a CPA as an insurance professional. But that's sort of been the trajectory of my life, working through that, working with people. I've always been very fond of creating what I call light bulb moments, where you take what people would view to be impossible and shine the light on possibilities that they are not aware of, they don't see. And
I
so that,
like that.
yeah, brings me a lot of joy to be able to do that for people. And so it's just a natural transition into coaching, which I've done on and off over the course of my career, but with a more targeted approach and focus on that now.
Mm, I like that. Bringing the light into people. And how does that make you feel when you help someone getting out that light that maybe you didn't see before or you didn't even know that it was there before? How does that make you feel personally?
Yeah, it's very rewarding. I was asked a question at one point. I can't remember the setting, but I remember the answer that I gave is I like to think of myself as a traveling jeweler, a traveling custom jeweler. And
Mm,
when I come to your place, residence, place of business, by the time that I'm done with you, I'm going to create one of the most valuable custom pieces that anyone's ever designed. But the interesting thing is the only tool that I'm going to have in my briefcase or my suitcase when I step into your place is going to be a mirror, because you are, in fact, the most valuable tool, the most valuable gem out there. And a lot of times we don't see that. It's hard to see ourselves when we're in the picture frame. And so being able to do it, to, again, shine the light on the brilliance that already exists in people and get them to get in touch with their true self. Um, it's a very, very rewarding feeling for sure.
yeah, that's amazing. You, for example, as a coach, how do you help your clients or how do you help anybody find their true purpose so that they can maybe live fulfilled lives?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of different ways to go about slicing that cat, so to speak. But one of the acronyms that I've come up with to just kind of paint a picture to help people understand how to get in the right path of unveiling what their purpose is, I use the acronym MAT. And a
Matt,
lot of times, MAT, yeah, the
MAT.
acronym MAT. Yeah, it stands for what motivates you, what angers you, and what transformation you want to bring into the world. So having been in the financial services industry, I've worked with clients who may have worked for a corporate employer. And while it's not as fashionable today, I mean, there was a time in our history where people were proud of having worked for the same company for 30 years. Today,
Mm-hmm.
it seems fashionable to kind of have varied experiences with a bunch of different companies. But there are many of those individuals who would be at the same company for 20, 30 years and had already, set a retirement date and were literally checking off the days and the weeks and the months and the years until they retired. But what was sad about that was the expectation that these 30 years, you're just waiting for it to pass away. Like they are the 30 of your least ideal years. And when you retire is when you're going to start living life. I just
Mm-hmm.
think that's a sad story for anybody to be carrying around. I can't foresee that the creator of the universe would have placed us here on earth and defined being alive and living at a 10 and feeling that we are fulfilling our core purpose, living at the highest level of actualization but that's something that would be deferred for 30 years. And so a lot of those people who may, spend 8 hours at a job that they don't like, but that maybe makes good money, I often tell them, when you walk into the front door and you see that mat that's in front of your house, let it be a reminder of where your focus and attention should be. One, what you were designed and created to do should be something that instinctively motivates you. You should have a natural proclivity to want to do whatever it is that you're called to do. It should be
Yeah.
like almost like a growing pain on the inside of you, kind of like a pregnant lady goes through 40 weeks of like feeling, there's something that really, you know, humming here on the inside, so to speak. So
Yeah.
purpose isn't going to be that far off from something that naturally you're motivated by. The
Mm-hmm.
second thing in that acronym MAT is anger. Anger is a very, very powerful emotion. Oftentimes we see the dark side of that, but I believe there's a good side to anger. And a good side to anger is when you are angry about the state of a specific issue within our environment.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, one of the things that angers me is this consistent statistics that's been out there that greater than 90% of businesses fail.
Yeah.
And it's been a running statistic for
Yeah.
decades. And I abhor that, because I know, especially in the times that we're in today, where we're dealing with the coronavirus pandemic, it's the small business owner that is single-handedly most responsible for the viability and the longevity of our economy. And so we have to do everything to uphold and support the small business owner. They're the ones that are responsible for the myriad of jobs that are being made available, to rank and file people. So that's an area where I have a personal interest in terms of uh, changing the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Changing the story around how successful businesses can be, right? That's one thing that angers me amongst many in terms of what my purpose is. But being able to identify what motivates you, being able to identify what angers you. And then third is being able to identify what level of transformation that you want to bring into the world. And so for me, speaking to that is the idea of breaking or ending hopelessness. Uh,
Mm.
Hopelessness is a catalyst for a lot of the evil that we see that's prevalent in our society. Anybody who's ever engaged in gang banging, who's ever stolen from a corner convenience store, who's ever engaged in prostitution, who's ever engaged in child molestation, who's ever engaged in human trafficking. The list goes on of just heinous and hideous things that we see within our society. At the root of a lot of those decisions, which led to actions that were initiated by thoughts that people had, or thoughts of hopelessness. Each and every individual, I kid you not, if you had an opportunity to interview somebody who was in that predicament, who was engaging in that type of behavior, you would find that they had come to a place in life where they felt like their life was hopeless. And out of that very disempowering state of hopelessness, they felt like the only alternative that was available to them, the only viable alternative, the only viable option that they had as to what they could do, was to engage in that type of behavior. So
Mm-hmm.
I know at the core of my being that if we can help mitigate, reduce, and even end hopelessness, that we will see a precipitous drop in the number of really, really heinous things that happen within our society that we just abhor at the core of who we are. So those are, a couple of examples of how somebody can kind of navigate to figure out, what is my purpose? What was I created to do? It's got to motivate you. You got to be angered by something relating to what it is that you want to do. And you've got to have at the heart of your heart this major level of transformation that you want to bring to the world as a result of fulfilling your purpose.
That's really that's amazing. It's actually the first time that I heard this little math acronym. That's pretty brilliant. I like that. And
Thank you.
for the anger, is it can that correspond to the point where when you get tired of being tired, like you are sick and tired of being sick and tired, that's like,
Yeah.
oh, this is what I have to change. That's when Is that a good
That's
example?
oftentimes a good sign that you get so fed up with the way in which life is,
Yeah.
which a particular situation is. That could be a clue that you're being called to change that. A lot of the great inventions, a lot of the great companies that we have, whether it's Elon Musk and some of the things he's done with the electric car. He wasn't the first person to, to invent the electric car, but he's
Mm-hmm.
going to go down in history as the first person to commercialize it as a profitable industry.
Yeah.
There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of being sick and tired of all the emissions from the alternative forms of vehicles that were out there, right? There was a lot of sick and tired of being, the limitations that the alternative forms of vehicles were natural, petrol-based vehicles, and so, he went through his version of MAT, I'm sure, to get to that place where he decided to launch Tesla to make a difference, to bring transformation, to deal with something that angered him, but also to work in an area where he felt some level of motivation as well.
Yeah. 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 That is very right. I'm gonna remember that. Matt, what does success mean to you?
Yeah, I think success is waking up in the morning and on a scale of 1 to 10, feeling like you're at a 10 in every area, in every dimension of your life, and being able to go to bed at night and still being able to put a check mark that I'm at a 10 at every area of my life. And so for me, there's 5 key areas where I think people seek to be extremely successful in. One is within the love relationships that you have, who you have
Mm-hmm.
around that you love and care about. What input, what level of energy are you putting in that area to help make yourself the best communicator in that relationship, to be the best servant leader in that relationship? There's so many different things that we need to do to put ourselves in a position where we can say we're experiencing our love relationships at a complete 10. Our physical health is another area. What are we putting into our bodies? What do we know about our bodies in terms of how it operates and how it functions at an optimal level? What are we doing to be good stewards over our physical health? Another area is our finances. What are we doing to expand the flow and direction of money in and through our lives so that we can continue to direct that money out of our lives to create incredible change in the world as we know it?
Mm-hmm.
What are we doing within the realms of personal growth? Learning doesn't stop when you graduate college. If anything, you get enrolled in the real course of life. And so, are you a lifelong learner? Are you committed to constant and never ending improvement? Are you seeking to always optimize your personal growth?
Yeah.
Uh, and then the last area would be just career and business. What are you called to do, right? And what's the imprint you're supposed to leave, either as an employee who's going to scale the ranks and serve and achieve at the highest level within an organization, or somebody who's called to be an entrepreneur who's going to venture out into the deep, take the road less traveled, and try to do things better than what they may have experienced as an employee working for somebody else. So those are the 5 areas where I think we have to be cognizant of living at a level of success that's consistent with what we have access to do.
Mm. Yeah. That's very powerful. I like that. Waking up every day and being able to check mark on a scale of 0 to 10, did I live my life the way I want it to be? That's very powerful. I like that. And what do you think about this conflict, quote unquote, conflict between uh, happiness and money? Like, uh, is it I can only be happy, or I can only have money, or can I have both?
I think you absolutely have to have both to have a 10 as a check mark of success in the areas of those 5 key areas of your life. I think the problem is a lot of us go through life not realizing the impact that trauma has had in our lives. And so there are things
Mm-hmm.
that we experience at a conscious and even at a subconscious level as a result of words that were said, as a
Mm-hmm.
result of words that were not said, as a result of actions that were taken, as a result of actions that were not taken.
Yep.
And as a result of the story that we built around those words and those actions that were said or not said, that were taken or that were not taken, and how that creates this invisible boundary of what's possible in our life, which stifles and limits us from living at a 10, from fully maximizing our purpose, from creating incredible legacy in the world. And so to be happy as it relates to money is to not build a storyline about all of the things that money will solve for you when you have it and have it in abundance. Because a lot of those core issues that define the level of joy that you're experiencing in life, money isn't going to be the driver as to whether or not you experience that. You can be a joyful person and not be a millionaire and not be a billionaire, be on the way to getting there. But
Mm-hmm.
the fact that you are doesn't now all of a sudden make your life happy and
Happy.
whole.
Yeah.
Right? But at the same time, if you're called to do something great, which I believe that we are all called to do something great on this earth, there's absolutely no way you can do that without having money and having it in abundance. It's the one
Mm-hmm.
metrics that we can use to actually deliver a tangible change in the earth. So I believe everybody has a birthright to be able to acquire as much money as they want.
Everybody has a birthright. I like that. Or how do you help them improve their results?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is really just awareness, right? So you've heard the adage of the saying, you can lead a horse to the water, but you can't make them drink. So before I take on any client that I work with in a coaching and a mentoring, in any type of a relationship, is I always try to assess, truly how coachable are these people, right?
Mm.
Are they willing to follow instruction? Are they committed to the journey ahead? Are they resourceful? Are they willing to take by any means necessary approach to get into that place called there? Because everybody is stuck in a place called here, and here is insufficient. Here
Mm-hmm.
isn't the dream that we have when we went to bed at night, right?
Yeah.
We have this vision of what they're supposed to look like, and we all have this gap that we need to fill. So, to the extent that we're coachable, to the extent that we are committed to the journey and the process of becoming, not necessarily the end goal. You see, the goal that we have of being and doing and having whatever it is that we want in life, it's never about what that thing is. It's always about who we become in the process of actually trying to acquire that thing. It's about getting to a place where you have the resources, you have the capacity to be able to steward that thing that you're going after, right? So
Yeah.
who you become in the process. So are you coachable? Are you committed? And are you resourceful to be able to jump through every hoop, jump over every barrier, figure out a way to make it happen when the whole world would give you 99 reasons why it can't happen?
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
you look at impossible and see a bunch of impossibilities, or do you see I'm possible? Right. So it's all about perspective.
I am possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. And how do you personally stay motivated? How do you keep yourself on fire every day?
Yeah. I think the way you start out your day defines what that day ends up looking like.
Mm.
And so, we went through a period of time where the leaders of our country were going into foreign lands looking for weapons of mass destruction, um, and had every reason as to why they did that. But I think probably one of the biggest weapons that we're faced with in the 21st century is what I would call weapons of mass distraction. So what I have
Weapons of
found, distraction.
mass distraction.
That's right. One of the most distracting things that we have is one of the most powerful things that we also have. It's called a smartphone, right?
Mm.
A lot of the electronics that we have today are designed to create a dependency and a need on those devices to, quite frankly, fill a need to be loved, to be heard, to be appreciated. That really shouldn't be filled with those devices. So the question then becomes, what are you doing to make sure you wake up every day and you look at yourself in the mirror and you go, boy, you are you're the baddest man that I know.
It's
You're
good.
you're about to step out here into this world and wreak havoc in a good way. What are
Yeah,
you doing to motivate yourself? What are you doing to make yourself be the biggest cheerleader for you,
yeah,
brand you? And so it all boils down to, the level of discipline you have about how you start out your day, how you step into a very powerful state for that day that says that I am absolutely limitless, that there are no limits about what I can be, do, or have, and that I will jump over every hurdle and move past every disappointment and keep pressing forward until I go to bed and I put a check mark that today was in fact a good day.
let's go. Yeah, I love that. I love it. That was great. And I'm also a little curious on your journey to get to where you were right now. What was maybe one of your biggest failures or mistake or however you want to put it, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah, I've had several mistakes on my journey to getting here. We filed bankruptcy in 2003. This was after having had my first run of making a lot of money.
Or was that your mentor business?
No, no, this was back in the late 1990s, early 2000. I was still working as a tax consultant.
Okay.
Actually, I just completed my work with the CPA industry and was working in the financial services industry. And I came
Mm,
out of that season birthing my business. Probably one of my biggest failures has been an over reliance on one of my biggest strengths.
mm,
By virtue of just the way that I was raised and circumstances around the trajectory of transitioning from a teenager to an adult, I had to become very, very independent. And that served me well in my younger years in terms of being able to forge my own path, take matters into my own hand, and be very intentional about creating outcomes that I wanted to experience and have. But as you mature, you realize that strength doesn't lie in your independence. Strength lies in your interdependence. It's your
mm,
ability to surround yourself with people who create synergy and allow you to accomplish more as a group than you could do on your own. It's your ability to not rely on just your intelligence, but to also be aware of reliance on spiritual intelligence, spiritual discernment, having a relationship with the creator of the universe, and being completely dependent on the fact that he has the answers to every question, every decision that you could ever make, and that his path and his ways are far superior and far better than yours. So for me, being a Christian and relying heavily on my relationship with the Lord and having a relationship with the Holy Spirit has been something that I've had to cultivate over the years
yeah.
and come to a place where I could depend more on that which I don't see than that which I see with my natural eye, and can come to a conclusion based on just what my natural gifts and talents would tell me to do. The executives and founders of companies would tell you that some of the best decisions that they've made have been instinctive, gut like decisions where it didn't make sense at the time, but they just had a gut level feeling that this was what they needed to do.
Mm-hmm.
That gut level feeling for me comes from the Holy Spirit, and it's a process of cultivating and learning how to be able to place trust in that inner knowing that you have, that quite frankly can confound, confuse others who may not have the same feeling or sense about a particular matter. So that's probably been one of my biggest failures, is probably not doing a better job of trying to cultivate that relationship earlier in life than later.
Mm. Cultivate that relationship, spiritual intelligence. Yeah, that's great. And also, how do you personally, or how would you help students and maybe younger people or anybody in general dealing with being rejected? Being rejected by maybe a friend or a girl that you're trying to talk to, or maybe an offer trying to get a book deal and then you get rejected? How do you deal with rejection?
I think rejection really stems from the story and the meaning that we give to it. See, the problem is never really the problem. The problem isn't that you were rejected by your girlfriend. The problem isn't that you had a book that you submitted and somebody said, no, we don't want to publish it. The problem isn't that you tried to launch a business and it failed. The problem is the story that you tell yourself about each one
Mm-hmm.
of the incidents, what it means to you, how it minimizes your brilliance, how it takes a fail, which I define as your first attempt in learning, and renders a verdict that you're a failure. It's you being able to separate an action from your being, right?
Yeah.
Muhammad didn't fail. Muhammad isn't a failure. Muhammad isn't unworthy of being loved. Muhammad just maybe hadn't grown personally to the point where he could be fully present in a relationship to deal with the individual that he was looking to court.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Muhammad hadn't matured to the level of being able to have all the necessary resources available to him to launch a successful business. Maybe there were some things that Muhammad needed to learn by not having the business go forth initially that would
Yeah.
prepare him for the real business he's supposed
Yeah.
to, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So rejection is no different. Is what does it mean to you? Why is it a problem? Um, why are you sad, depressed, or uncomfortable by being rejected? So it's always an internal look in to go, why am I making this bigger than it is?
Mm-hmm.
There's power in a no, right? And so
Yeah.
we should applaud people who are willing to say no, because people who say yes all the time can get run over.
Yeah.
Being able to, create boundaries around what you're willing to do versus what you're not willing to do is strength. And it should be something that is celebrated and not rejected, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree. Rejection is exactly like you were saying earlier. It's all about perception. The story, how do you see it? How do you look at it? Exactly like you're saying, you have to be able to separate and tell that, put that story here, and then take yourself out of it and put yourself here. And just like you were saying earlier, look at yourself in the mirror and be like, this is me. I'm still the baddest person right now, and I'm still gonna keep going and keep trying, right?
Absolutely. If you're not your biggest cheerleader, why should I be?
Exactly. Yeah. And I've actually learned that too the hard way, as in, because I used to I've done 2 summers selling door to door. We were selling smart home systems. And that's where I learned that lesson, as in it doesn't really matter what you're selling or what you're offering. You have to believe first.
That's right.
You don't believe. If I don't believe, you won't believe. And if I don't believe in the product, you will not buy the product.
That's right. People buy belief every day of the week. They buy belief.
Exactly. Yep. Yep. And what is mindset to you? Or what is your definition of mindset, and how is mindset, or what does the role of mindset play in our daily lives?
Yeah, there's a um, there are 7 parts or 7 levels that make up what I refer to as mindset. Mindset is a combination of the thoughts that we entertain, the emotions that are stirred from those thoughts, the feelings that are generated from those thoughts, the attitudes that are created, the actions that we take, the habits that are formed, and ultimately the results that we create in our lives. And so, mindset is just understanding that we give life to every thought, like everything is created twice.
Mm-hmm.
The sticky notes that we use today was first something that was created in the mind of somebody.
Mm-hmm.
It created a certain feeling and emotion within them, which moved them into action, which caused them to have an attitude about, I don't care what anybody thinks that this is a dumb idea because I see how transformative this little sticky note is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
It created behaviors that were consistent with what they felt like they were supposed to bring into the world. And they formed habits that were consistent with being disciplined to actually go through the research, the development, and ultimate launch of that product. So, as much power as something creative has for good, when we entertain thoughts that are not consistent with who we are, who our creator says we are, thoughts that lead us into behaviors and actions that are inconsistent with creating the good that we want to see in this world, it's just a function of our mindset, right? And our mindsets are set for the most part by the time we turn 7 years old. And then we just continue kind of compounding and adding to an already established foundation. And so that's why, we always have to dig in and answer the question, when was the first time I was rejected? If I have a problem with rejection. And if we
Mm-hmm.
spend the time and go back into our history, we'll go back to some child when we were a kid. Maybe we were out there in the playground and we wanted to go play with the kids. And either they looked at the color of our skin, or they looked at us and thought we were chubby, or they did something that said, no, you're not welcome here. And we built a story around that rejection as being, I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
I'm not worthy of being loved. I'm not worthy of being accepted. And we had multiple experiences because we were giving energy to that thought, right? So we had multiple experiences that were consistent with what we,
Yeah.
the universe started providing examples to confirm that which you were believing as a result of a thought that you were entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what mindset is all about, is just being very aware of the thoughts that we entertain, the beliefs that are created from those thoughts, the emotions, and the feelings that result, the actions, the attitudes that are formed, and the habits that are created, which ultimately lead us to the results that we experience in life.
Yeah. 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 I love that awareness of the thoughts, the feelings, the behaviors, actions. But the one key thing that I'm seeing here, it all starts from awareness.
Yes.
You really have to be aware of what's going on around, aware of the environment, so that we can decide and choose for ourselves, choose our thought, choose our feelings, which will lead to these actions and these attitude in order to have the results that we want. Right? Does that sounds about right?
Everything starts with a thought. Nobody who engages any action or behavior who tells you, oh, it just happened. That's a complete lie. The only way
Yeah,
it could have happened was if you at some point entertained the thought
yeah, yeah.
to
And
actually carry that out, the process. It's like an assembly line. It starts with a thought, it creates emotions, feelings, it becomes a belief.
mm-hmm,
That belief moves you into taking actions. It forms specific attitudes about life and what you can expect. And then it forms habits that are consistently repeated patterns over the course of your life, which leads you to creating results that are consistent with the thought and the belief that was created about who you are, what's possible, what's capable.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Isn't that amazing how just one idea can have so many different layers? It's
Yeah,
always crazy to me.
that's why the Bible says that we're supposed to take captive every thought that isn't in obedience to the Word of God, because we know the ripple effect that thoughts can have, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. And I love the analogy of the sticky notes too, because a lot of times we think that our ideas are dumb ideas. We think that our ideas, oh, who people will laugh or whatever, whatever. But a lot of the dumb ideas are actually the greatest or the biggest companies today.
Yeah, everybody would assume that it's not possible until it is.
Yeah, yeah,
Everybody will assume that it's a dumb idea until you prove it's not,
yeah,
right?
yeah. It's always impossible until it's done.
Until it's done, you got it.
Yeah. If you had to go back in time, let's say if you were, or if you had to talk to your 19-year-old self or your 20-year-old, your 21, 25, what would you tell him to do different, or what would you tell him to keep doing or not to change?
Yeah, if I had to go back to my 18-year-old self, I would tell him to enjoy the process.
Mm,
There is a process that we go through The process of creation, the process of seed time and harvest, the process of germination, you can't fast forward that process. You've got to be willing to go through the dying that a seed has to go through when it's put underneath the earth, where it's covered with filth and dirt, and worms are coming through and eating around and about that seed. And somebody comes and then dumps water over the area where you've been planted,
Mm-hmm.
even just further make it feel very inconvenient.
Yeah.
Then, after a period of time, germination starts to take place,
Yeah.
seasons change, and all of a sudden, very, very nasty seed that was in conditions that seemed inhumane comes forth and creates and buds and flourishes, and now it's multiple bushels of corn or oranges or whatever it is, right? But if you give up because it's uncomfortable, and you don't like the taste of sand, and you don't like worms around you, and you don't, like the feel of water being poured on you, and you will abort what's going to eventually show up at harvest time. And so
Mm-hmm.
there have been seasons in my life where I would try to fast forward the process, where I would want to, I'd catch a vision of where I'm supposed to be and automatically assume that I'm supposed to be there, forgetting the fact that there is a process of sowing and reaping, seed time and harvest, planting and yielding. And no matter how bad I want it, no matter how quickly I want it to come, that I have to be willing to go through the process of creation.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably one of the biggest lessons that I would pass down to my youngest self, is to go through the process, embrace the process, but also enjoy it. There's a reason why a book doesn't just have one chapter. It has several chapters that lead to a build-up and a conclusion. You never want to abort the chapters in between.
Yeah. 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 That is so true. Even, and it's so hard to, I don't know if it's being aware of that or maybe embracing that idea, especially us right now, the younger generations, right? We all want that instant gratification, and it's so easy right now because we see that everywhere. It's on Instagram. We can literally see what all these celebrities are doing, and we all want this right away or right now, but it doesn't it doesn't really work like that.
Yeah.
Right?
We live in a crockpot world with a microwave mentality. We want everything done in 30 seconds or less. But the really,
Crackpot word with microwave mentality. I think I heard that somewhere before. I don't
yeah,
remember, but that's that's powerful.
yeah.
And my last